Hey guys, this is Jeff Stanek with Figured Out Baseball. We've got a really good Figured Out Baseball podcast today. I'm very, very excited to have Eric Valent joining us on the podcast. If the name is familiar to you, he spent some time in the big leagues and is currently with the Miami Marlins. I'll give you a full background on Eric before we jump into questions with him here. Again, very, very excited about this podcast, and today's podcast is brought to you by Diamond Kinetics. Eric is originally from Anaheim, California. He was an All-American at Canyon High School in Anaheim. Drafted by the Detroit Tigers out of high school in 1995. He was drafted in the 26th round. That year, he also played for Team USA's 18U national team. He did not sign with the Tigers, ended up going to college, which was, as you'll see, a really good decision for him, I think. He ended up going to UCLA. At UCLA, the team went to the College World Series in 1997, which I'm sure was an unbelievable experience as a player. He finished his career at UCLA as the Pac-10, at that time the Pac-10's all-time leader in career home runs. He still is the conference leader in career home runs. He also set the UCLA career RBI record, which he still holds currently, and he did both of those things in only 3 seasons. He was drafted in 1998 after his junior year in the first round. He went 42nd overall to the Philadelphia Phillies. He made his major league debut in June of 2001, spent part of 5 seasons in the big leagues, 2001 through 2005, and then played part of the 2006 season professionally in Japan. Once he was done playing, he got in with the Philadelphia Phillies organization again, spent 10 years with the Phillies organization. The first year he spent as a hitting coach for the Williamsport Crosscutters, one of the minor league affiliates with the Phillies, and then he got into the scouting side of things, spent time as an area supervisor, and then as a regional supervisor with the Phillies before jumping to or being hired by the Miami Marlins. He was hired by the Marlins in October 2017 to be the National Scouting Supervisor, which is what he is today, the National Scouting Supervisor with the Miami Marlins. It is worth saying as well that he's was inducted into the UCLA Hall of Fame in 2015 for the unbelievable seasons, the 3 seasons he spent at UCLA. Eric, I certainly appreciate you spending time being with us on the podcast today.
I'm just fortunate enough to be here, Jeff. Looking forward to it.
So typically I start with something that stands out from guys' bios. And for you, it was a really interesting path for you, and you've got to do a lot of things that a lot of people have not. But I'd like to ask you, between playing for Team USA, playing in the College World Series, being a first-round draft pick, making your major league debut, out of all those experiences and others, are there one or two things, Eric, from your playing career that I guess maybe trump the others as far as just a thrill for you, or just maybe one of your best memories that you've got as an amateur player?
Yeah, I'd probably say, probably ultimately making my debut in the major leagues. That's a goal of probably any young kid that loves baseball that started playing T-ball when they're 5 years old. So, having that opportunity to make my debut at Fenway Park and then get my first hit, that I think my 4th at bat off Derek Lowe, about a 25 ground ball single between the 3-4 hole on a power sinker. But that definitely, and then a lot of the amateur stuff. I was fortunate enough to grow up in Southern California, being exposed to a lot of great baseball instruction and great baseball players at a young age, and being involved in scout leagues. So, and I was a baseball junkie as far as I was at the field all the time, and I was talented, but I wouldn't say I was ever the biggest guy on the field at a really young age or anything like that. But I was just exposed to a lot of baseball early, and then helped get my name on somewhat on the scene. And I was fortunate enough to play Team USA for 2 years, the summer before my senior year, and then, like you mentioned, the summer after my senior year. Just do a lot of different things, and then ultimately go to UCLA and go to the College World Series, and have a phenomenal 3 years there, just both on the field and then just building relationships as well. But number one, definitely making my debut as far as in the major leagues is what I feel is any kid's dream.
Yeah, I was one of those kids, and unfortunately wasn't nearly talented enough to get there. But I just, that the draft day and making your major league debut are just two things that I don't know that anybody can truly wrap their head around that hasn't experienced that. And, if there was anything that I wasn't able to accomplish in my own life that I wish I would have, it would have been that. I mean, either of those things really hard to imagine. Eric, who got you into baseball when you were a kid? Is it something that you grew up with? Did you have family members that played? Just kind of curious how you got into it as a kid and just what kind of grew your love for it when you were young.
So my dad enjoyed baseball. So, and I was an athletic kid growing up. Played a lot of soccer and baseball, and I really loved soccer. I played soccer, a lot more soccer than I did baseball up until high school, and then so I played competitive soccer till 8th grade. Had a group of guys I played with from like 4th grade to 8th grade, and then I always loved baseball, but I enjoyed playing soccer too. So, but once I got to high school, I just I hung soccer up, played football my freshman year, and then continued to play baseball, and then I actually started playing soccer again my junior year because I really liked the coach. It was a young coach, and some of my friends were playing, and I played varsity soccer as a junior, and then my senior year the coach had left, and it wasn't going to be as fun, and that's why I was playing it. So I ended up just playing baseball, but played sports all the way through. But my dad exposed me to baseball, and then seeing that I had a love for it, and kind of just like your son enjoyed watching the games, looking at baseball cards, reading box scores. As a young kid, we were deep into baseball cards and going to card shows at that time. In the late '80s, it was card shows were a big thing. So we'd be able to go to card shows in Southern California. We'd get tons of autographs from the greats, Willie Mays, Ted Williams, Mickey Mantle, all of them. So it was just awesome to kind of just be involved in that scene back then. And it was kind of just built my thirst for the game. And then also it came pretty natural to me. So again, when something like that happens as well for a kid, you're more likely to keep doing it. So that's kind of how it started.
So I've got to ask you a little bit about your thoughts on kids playing multiple sports. I mean, I would like you to look at this from a dad perspective, as you've got a couple kids that play, that really enjoy baseball, and but also from a scouting perspective. And I don't know how much things have changed from when you were growing up until now, and I'm not that much younger than you, but even things when I grew up till now. I'd like to just kind of get your opinion about youth baseball, and you can kind of talk about, whatever you have an opinion when kids are, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, or when they're 16, 17, 18. I'm curious your thoughts about playing multiple sports. If you believe that kids that want to play at a really high level of college, or that want to play pro ball, if they should be going down to what one sport, like at what point should that be happening? I'm curious, someone that's done the things that you've done, but also now the seat that you sit in as a scout and as a dad. I'd really like to hear your thoughts on those things.
Yeah, multi-sports is great. But the toughest thing now these days, it's not with baseball, it's with soccer, it's lacrosse, it's with basketball, it's with football. Once you get to high school, is they want you 12 months out of the year, and that's the tug that the parents feel from the soccer programs, the lacrosse programs, the basketball programs, the baseball programs. They all want you to specialize, which is, it's unfortunate because when you look in, we know the numbers and history of the game. Let's take baseball for example. You're looking at 20,000 people to ever play at least one day in the major leagues in the history of the game. So those kind of odds to sit there and try to specialize in something and think about that is just so far-fetched. And then the scholarship thing for parents that they get in their kids' heads at 9 years old, it's like that is so far-fetched as well. It's when any sports, baseball, basketball, all of them, it should be built on a foundation of fun, passion, and just a competition level. That's it, because as they get older, if the foundation isn't fun and just competitiveness, he or she, their love for the game, they'll never become what they're supposed to become. If they're doing it thinking, oh, wow, this is going to provide me a great living in the future, or maybe they're doing it a little bit for their parents or something, it's not going to work. So, I mean, we see it, the best players in all sports, whether, the greatest or the ones that end up playing just a long time and being a complimentary player in a particular league, they have a passion for the game and they do it because they want to do it. But getting back, that this time is just, there's such a pull, and I think it's almost like some of the parents feel that they get bullied into it, but they could put a plan in place. I mean, I would have if your child likes basketball, baseball, football, or they should play it. They should play it until they get no enjoyment out of the sports. And even when they're in ninth grade, let's just say they love to play all three sports, but they love baseball, there's avenues for them. They can go to a college camp. They host a camp. Colleges host all the time, little showcase. The coaches are there. When you're a ninth grader, you can pay, it's not expensive compared to some of these showcases that the parents get wrapped up into, and you can get in front of a college coach for a couple $100 if that. And if you're good, if the coach likes what they sees your athleticism, watches the way you throw the ball, the way you swing the bat, your bat speed, they're going to take your information. So you don't have to feel like you're getting left out by not traveling everywhere, up and down the East Coast. But yeah, the landscape has definitely changed. It's tough right now. It's a little easier for us, being in Pennsylvania, but you get down to the warmer weather states, all those sports where you can be outside all the time or all year round. It's very difficult, and I feel bad for the best player, say at 9 or 10 years old, because especially if he's playing a lot of baseball, he or she, they're throwing a ton. They're probably pitching at least once a week, 10 months out of the year, and just the wear and tear they're putting on their arm for the future, it doesn't bode well. It's my recommendation would be, let's just say a kid loves baseball at 9, 10, and he doesn't want to play anything else. He just wants to play baseball. Well, if you pitch, just pitch in the spring and don't pitch in the fall season. Just go play a position, or vice versa. Pitch in the fall, don't pitch in the spring. So that's kind of some little things that you could combat to try to make sure you're just doing it the right way.
There's a lot of good stuff there, because that's such a hot topic on social media, and I bring social media up, a lot on podcasts, because I think that's where people express themselves. That's where people throw their opinions out there, and there's a lot of people that have a lot of different opinions about playing year-round and specializing sports. Eric, is there any point with your kids, your own kids, is there any point that could anything happen where that would make you say to your kids, I really think that you should not play basketball this year, and or football this year, or soccer or whatever, and just focus on baseball? Like, what would have to happen for you to say that to one of your own kid, or like maybe one of their friends that they kind of like, their parents look to you for advice? What would have to happen to make you say that to somebody?
That I would say it's like when they graduate high school, they already have a major scholarship. I'm talking, probably 60% beyond. I would say 60% is major these day and age with what the teams are giving out, and the schools are giving out, and where you have an opportunity to make an impact as a freshman on campus. If not, then you continue to just do everything that you enjoy doing. Or if the kid particularly just does not want to play, if he or she wants to play, you just keep playing, and that's it. I mean, we can get hurt. You can get hurt walking down the street. So if someone plays football and baseball, and they have a scholarship for baseball, and they're going to play as freshman, but they love football, and that they've been playing with their boy. He's been playing with his boys since he's 8 years old. I mean, those are memories that are going to last. He's going to regret not playing that senior season and running out on a Friday night. So it all depends on the kid, and it's hopefully his parents or his influences in his life are giving him, good information. Giving him information where the kid can make a good decision for himself, for his own life, for his path, what he can look back on.
What if a player was not getting the scholarship interest that they wanted? Do you think there's any merit to taking a year or two where it was baseball year round? And I don't just mean like playing games all year round, but for example, instead of playing basketball, maybe you take time off to lift.
If that's the path he wants to take, like if he's like, I'm willing to give up another sport because I want to just train, I want to get strong, I want to do whatever it takes to hopefully get on campus somewhere at some level, then yeah. But again, that's got to be the kid. It should all be the kid's decision. Should be presented in front of him, and see what he wants to do. So any decision like that, as long as it's something that they want to do, then go ahead. But if they still feel there's opportunities where you can play a sport and still train and still get training in with another sport, you just got to be able to manage your time and be committed and do it. Like when I was playing soccer my junior year, I continued to hit. I'd come home from soccer practice and I got my swings in or I got my throws in, and it was never I'm playing soccer, I'm not working out baseball. No, you do it. It's a commitment it takes.
I'd like to kind of flip it, stay in the same subject a little bit, but flip it now to the scouting side of things. Do you pay any attention whatsoever to how many months out of the year a certain player, obviously it's probably more so for high school than college, but for a high school baseball player, does it matter to you at all whether or not this kid, is only a baseball player or plays three sports? Is there anything about that changes your opinion about a guy? Does that come into play at all when looking at a player for the draft?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of teams in general, when you think about it, I think you love a multi-sport athlete who maybe hasn't spent the hours training in that particular sport yet. So the ceiling or the growth maybe is definitely more than a kid who's been exposed to a ton of baseball and who's had a ton of instruction. So, or a pitcher who's had less, just been less mileage on their arm, and especially this day and age where the kids, compared to myself, coming out of high school, I was, one of the top players across the country, recruited players, and the size and strength of the kids today compared to when I was in school, is just amazing to me. So that just goes with the sophistication of, these kids are working out and they're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, and you're seeing the injuries too. I mean, you're seeing Tommy Johns are much more prevalent in high school, and then especially even at the college level, you're seeing it. There's already a few of the top pitchers this coming year that have already, unfortunately went down with some elbow injuries, and that just happens because these kids are bigger, stronger, faster. That's what you see it in all sports, and it's something that we have to combat. The kids have to combat.
What about northern climates compared to southern climates? Does that affect your decisions at all? I'm from Pennsylvania. You currently live in Pennsylvania, although you're from Southern California. Do you look at a kid from a northern climate any different than a southern climate?
In the end, we're just looking at the talent, the ceiling, make sure all the boxes are checked as far as delivering arm action, breaking ball, fastball, and maybe if it's a tiebreaker, you take you take the kid that hasn't been exposed to as much coaching or just hasn't played baseball. But in the end, no, it doesn't. As far as north south, it doesn't matter. We're going to try to take the best player.
Let's ask you a little bit just about your job as a National Scouting Supervisor. Eric, can you just explain to people exactly what that means and what your actual position is and what your job description looks like?
Yeah, so we're just getting ready to start the busiest time of my schedule is when leading up to the July draft now, amateur draft, is I'm kind of responsible with our scouting director is just to go see the top amateur players across the country, whether it be college, junior college, high school, that are available, that we've kind of turned in our system that we feel fit our ideals, and that's what I do. So getting ready from here, starting in February or so, leading up till July, is just going to see kind of the top players across the country and kind of seeing how we feel about them and ranking them in our system, and listen to our regional scouts and our area scouts, and to be able to make informed decisions, just get as much information as we can, get as many looks as we can, and so we can go into July prepared.
How many players will you specifically see in a given spring, and then how many rounds does that usually equate to? And meaning, okay, there's only 20 rounds in the draft now, so will you end up seeing, if you guys have whatever 20, 21, 22 picks, will you end up seeing all of those drafts or all those guys usually, or will you end up seeing the top 10 rounders just because you have to see so many kids because you're not sure who other teams are going to pick? Just kind of curious how many kids you end up usually seeing between now and the draft, and how many rounds that equates to.
Yeah, so so definitely probably the top 3 rounds for sure, and even then after that, I may end up seeing some of the guys beyond that the past summer or the fall, but definitely the scouting director and the national guys are trying to see the top 3 rounders, and then as you get, because you're trying to get multiple looks on players, and as you get deeper in the draft, the regional guys and the area scouts have seen the players a lot more than we have, so we want to make sure, and with they're great scouts, and you want to make sure that their opinions come into play. So, and their opinions come into play from the first round on. But definitely, as you get deeper in the draft, you're leaning heavily on the regional scouts and the area scouts.
this is obviously from an outsider's perspective. I've never sat in the draft room. I've never sat there and watched. I don't go to national tournaments and watch. The top 100 kids in any particular draft class all sort of work out together or whatever. But it seems from the outside looking in, and I follow the draft fairly closely as a fan. And again, I am a local associate scout, so I get to see a couple guys here and there that might get drafted. But for the most part, it seems that the first round talent, those guys are the ones that are talent wise clearly kind of head and shoulders above most people. But at some point, the water starts to get a lot muddier, right? At some point, you see a lot of players that are very, very similar talent wise. And I don't know if this is a fair thing to say, but maybe rounds 3 through 10 or something like that, or at least maybe 3 through 7 or 8, you see a lot of similar guys talent wise. What separates to you? What are some of the things that maybe the average person wouldn't see that to you separates guys once the very, very cream of the crop guys are gone? What starts to separate guys at that point? Whether it's characteristics or whether it's just something about their background or just whatever. What separates guys at that point?
Yeah, so there's so many we know there's so many variables that come into play and challenges for a player to become a major league player. But teams, when you're picking in the first round, you have the luxury of getting talented players with big tools and with performance history or statistics that can back it up. And then as you move from the top, you're getting less performance or less tools, and so you kind of pick and choose to see what you want to do as you get down in the draft. You may draft a hitter that, wow, he doesn't strike out that much, but he doesn't really profile at a position anywhere, but maybe we're going to get him better, or this guy works his butt off. He's going to do whatever it takes, and he's got that foundation of hand-eye coordination, so you take a chance on him. Or you got the pitcher with the big fastball that doesn't throw strikes and doesn't have a breaking ball, but you like the way the arm works, and you want to just put him into your system and see if we can get him a slider, or he ends up working so hard. So all those type of things, you're just looking for a passion for the game at every round, of course, and then from the top of the draft, you're getting everything, and then as you move down, you're just trying to find that one thing. And it just goes with listening to the area scouts and the regional scouts of who they really want and how deep they've got to know the players, and we just go from there.
One of the last podcasts I recorded, Eric, was with a junior college coach who I think does a really good job with his program, and he was using the acronym OKG a lot, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm just not as cool as I need to be, but like, you got to tell me what that means. I've never heard that before. And he said OKG stands for our kind of guy. When they're recruiting guys, they find guys that are our kind of guy. And if one of the coaches on their staff says to the other ones when they're having their meetings about who they're recruiting and whatever, if one of the coach says this is our kind of guy, the other coaches kind of know what that means. And I think that if you've done any recruiting at the college level or whatever, like or any scouting at all, like maybe that that resonates with you, and you can kind of understand what that means. With the Marlins, when it just beyond pure physical talent, are there any specific things, intangibles, characteristics, anything else that you guys look for? And I, when I'm asking this question, I'm thinking again from an outsider, from a fan's perspective. You've got Derek Jeter at the top within your organization, and that's like the king of intangibles. Does anything like that come from the top down as far as like what our kind of guy is with the Marlins? Are there any specific characteristics or intangibles that you guys look for specifically, especially as you get further in the draft, that like, okay, this guy, we're the really high level physically talented guys are gone, so we're going to start to kind of hone in on this type of player who has these specific characteristics that fit our organization? Like, does that exist? And if so, does that stuff come from the top down, from an owner or from a GM or from anybody in the organization?
No, ultimately you're trying to find the best talent as possible, because once you get to the playoffs, you see what type of players are on the field in order to win championships. But definitely. I mean, in general, I mean, all teams, you're looking for you're looking for a passion of the game, a competitive drive, guys that are team players. You're looking for all that type of stuff, and you want to think but then these players at the college and high school level, they've almost been like in a Truman Show bubble. They really never failed at the level they're getting ready to fail once they enter professional baseball. So we every team wants to think you're going to nail the makeup down on the player, and you do everything you can, whether it's meeting with them or getting having different people meet with the players, getting to know them, talking to coaches and whatnot. But until they go out and perform or see what they do when they go 1 for 20 as a hitter with 10 strikeouts, or as a pitcher he gets knocked out 3 starts in a row where he can't get out in the 3rd inning or something like that, then it's when those players are faced with that type of adversity of what they're going to do, how they're going to respond. Then that's when you truly get to know what the player's all about. So, but again, we do everything we can to talk to coaches, players, to get into their competitive drive and their will to succeed and to win and to get along with people.
When you're talking about specifically high school players, or even someone like yourself in college, who didn't really experience a lot of failure. Now, maybe you didn't, I know what your statistics looked like at UCLA, but I don't know what it was like, playing for Team USA or summer ball. I believe you played in the Cape, right, at some point, and I'm sure that there you experience some ups and downs. But for when you're scouting guys at the top of the draft, again, whether high school or college guys that don't experience a lot of failure, do you feel like at some point you need to see that to really know who the player is? Are you willing to take guys based on tools at the top who, I'm sure some of the best high school players in the country even go to the top showcases in the country and don't experience a lot of failure? Do you kind of have to just pick those guys and just let them sink or swim once they get into pro ball? Because when you get into pro ball, I'm sure everything's different. Or
you definitely just kind of you're taking the talent. You've met with the players. You feel comfortable with taking them. Then after that, it becomes on the player. Players. Whether you go to a big time college or professional baseball, you get everything imaginable. You're eating tremendously. There's nutritionists, your fitness, sleep study, you name it. The best coaches. It's all baseball. So at some point, a player has to realize that he's got to bring himself to the party and take advantage of it and do it. So when they do experience that type of failure, they have everything there at their disposal, and they just got to understand it and know going in. They got to know that the failure's coming. So it's just being able to just show up each day, move on. Have a bad day, you're looking forward. You're never looking back. It's each pitch. It's each swing. You just got to try to take it incrementally like that. Sean Green, who I got to know when I was younger, he went to Tustin High School, so he was 5 years older than me. I used to talk to him when he entered pro ball. It was just like I just try to see how I do each week. Just see and then move on after that. You can't. Baseball's too hard to worry about one game because then it can just keep building on. You kind of just say, let me see how I'm going to do this week, and then boom, when that week's over, let's see what I'm going to do the next week. So it's kind of just different perspectives that can help you just kind of manage the day-to-day grind, because baseball, it's coming at you every single day.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Diamond Kinetics. No matter what season you're in, our friends at Diamond Kinetics are here to help you train smarter and get better so you can dominate on the field this season. DK's line of mobile-based motion technology products give players and coaches the ability to practice smarter, practice more effectively, and have more confidence in the box and on the mound. On the hitting side, DK's Swing Tracker Bat Sensor provides in-depth, comprehensive swing analysis for the data-driven baseball player and coach. Attach the sensor to any bat, swing, and immediately see the barrel speed, bat acceleration, and 3D swing plane to enhance player development. DK's revolutionary swing fingerprint identifies your hitting hot zones and helps you improve your approach at the plate. With Diamond Kinetics, you will train smarter and get better and have more confidence on the field this spring. Eric, you just talked about all the amenities that are available in minor league baseball now. How much is that different from when you got drafted, or is it different from what you experienced as a player?
Oh, it's way different. Yeah, spring training back, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, you're running in from for lunch, and you're looking at getting to the soup before all the noodles or chicken's taken out of the soup, and eating some sandwiches that are thrown on a table. So now, it's phenomenal catered meals, whether it's in spring training or during the season, before games, after games. It's almost like it's not quite the big leagues, but it's to the point now where the minor league, where all they have to worry about their performance kind of on the field, and everything else is taken care of them. So they have a great opportunity to become the best player that they can be.
It's something I guess I've thought of, with my players that have gotten drafted as a college coach, guys that go into pro ball, is just, how many opportunities they have and how they have so many things in front of them to help them to get better. But ultimately a lot of guys, most guys don't make it. And the guys that do make it, a lot of them just for one reason or another maybe don't pan out to be what they could have been, or maybe what they what scouts thought they were going to be before the draft or on draft day. Do you think, in your opinion, when you get to that level, pro ball, when you get into pro ball and you get into the minor leagues, is it what separates guys at that point? What helps guys move up? Is it the guys that have the physical tools, or are physical tools pretty similar across the board, and it ends up being the guys that are the strongest mentally and have the best, maybe are the mental are the toughest guys out there mentally, or is it the guys that have the best work ethic? What do you feel like separates guys once they get to that level? If you can point to, one or two things that ultimately are going to, point to guys kind of reaching their ceiling or not.
Yeah, I think confidence, competitiveness, and being consistent. That's kind of what's gonna keep you around. That's what the best ones in the game are, and even the guys that end up playing a career where they grinded out 7, 8 years in the major leagues. They're confident, they're consistent, they understand what type of player they are, they know themselves, they know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, and they know all that. So, and then also sometimes it's just time. Just like anything in life, sometimes it's timing, and it's the makeup of a ball club, and it's a break here or there, or it's an opportunity to, you reach the major leagues, and you're on a bad team, so you have an opportunity to struggle, and the wins aren't as important. So there's a lot of variables like that come into play. Eric Harris, went to UCLA. He was older than me, and we were talking at length one day, and talking about how hard it is to reach the big leagues, and then it's hard to stay in the big leagues too. Not only perform, but just especially if you're on the back end of a roster guy, if you're a 24th, 25th, 26th man, it's timing, it's a little breaks here and there. It's a lot of variables that you don't even think about at the time, and that are unique to each player. So, especially when you look at the history of the game, there's roughly 20,000 people that ever play in the game, and figure 10,000 pitchers or so, 10,000 position players. That's not a lot of people when you think about a professional stadium and throw 20,000 people in there, and that's what you're looking at as far as who's played in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable when you think about it, and especially for how long we've been playing Major League Baseball in this country. It's really an unbelievable thing to think about. Eric, I don't know if you like talking about your career, or if you mind kind of getting into that side of things, but there are some things that I'd love to ask you about. You've been through things that most of us haven't, most of us never will. When you got to the big leagues, what were some of the most difficult things about it at that point? Did pitchers get that much better? Was it pressure being at that level? Just kind of curious, what was the most difficult thing for you once you got there? As far as just performing day to day.
Yeah, so for me, it was just you're going from playing every day in the minor leagues to going to the major leagues, and then I was kind of always playing off the bench a little bit, and I just wasn't consistent enough to do it. So that's kind of was my deal. I wasn't quite I wasn't quite good enough to play every day, and then as far as and then I couldn't adapt to not playing on a daily basis consistently. It was too many peaks and valleys, and ultimately that's what kept me probably out of the big leagues for a long time. I didn't quite provide enough power on the bench, and I wasn't a base stealer. I wasn't a pure center fielder, so that's a tough profile to stick around in the major league for a long time if you're not playing every day.
If you could go back and talk to yourself now, or even coach yourself now, at any point, whether it was high school, college, or pro ball, would you go back and tell yourself anything different, or or maybe there were some things that you again as a coach you could have told yourself, or is there anything you would have done if you had a chance to go back and just kind of mentor yourself, Eric?
Yeah, I should definitely try to enjoy the journey more. Know your strengths and weaknesses. Don't be afraid to make adjustments. At a time when you're really struggling, because there's so many times where you're just going up to the plate as a hitter where you're going to be out, where your swing's off, your timing's off, and at that time it's like, don't be afraid to choke up, higher than you normally have, where you can really feel the barrel and just try to put something in play. So just know your strengths and weaknesses. Don't be afraid to make adjustments. Take it day by day. And that's all kind of easy to talk about when you're not in it every single day and facing tough pitching day and night and struggling. But it's just trying to keep that perspective all the time. And as a younger player, it's probably just quality over quantity in your work. Don't think you need to go and swing 200 times. I should have just rather done 50 calculated swings and you could be done. But yeah, definitely quality over quantity. Know your strengths and weaknesses, and don't be afraid to make adjustments.
I'd also like to just kind of ask about what sort of pressure you feel when you get to the major leagues. And I think there are probably a lot of different types of pressure that you could feel. I'm sure there are guys that feel the pressure to make the money, once you're there, to stick around long enough to make a certain amount of money, as opposed to getting sent back down, or whether it's pressure from or you feel pressure like for family purposes, like whether you're representing your family and you don't want to get sent down because you want to make your family proud of being up there, or whatever it may be, or just the pressure of succeeding and having to look up at your batting average or whatever. Just again, things that most of us have never experienced. Did you experience any particular kind of pressure when you were there, or anything that just that the normal person going to a game and maybe booing a guy off the bench because he's hitting $150, like things that just most of us would never think about, or even being away from family, or just whatever it may be. Just can you tell us some of the kind of the pressure and the things that you felt and experienced as a player?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on a lot of good ones that I felt, and even that's what players feel today. The pressure to succeed, maybe to perform well for their family. Or you do have a family, and it's a chance to make some money to set your family up for a long time. So it's all those things, those outside influence that you have to be able to compartmentalize and deal with. And that's why it goes back to kind of what I mentioned earlier in our conversation, was it comes down to the player. You have to have just a innate love and passion and just want to compete, and that's what will be able to combat all those other kind of outed pressures sometimes that are going to be sitting there waiting for every player in every sport.
Got to imagine that's something that I'm sure that coaching pro ball is a lot different than coaching college baseball, but I've got to imagine that's something that a lot of the pro coaches.
Yeah, I mean, even in college now you see it. I mean, you see a lot of kids entering these transfer portals. They're committing so early, but then, at these big-time colleges now, I mean, the head coaches are making big salaries, so they have a lot. They're under pressure to win. So these kids, when they go to college, there's not a long leash in order to develop there. You got to come in and be ready to perform, because the coaches have to show a product on the field. I mean, those are big budgets those athletic departments are putting out.
Do you get a chance to talk with guys, your minor leaguers or guys that you've drafted specifically? Do you ever have that conversation with any players, or do you not, because of your position as a scouting supervisor, do you not get a chance to really talk with the guys a lot once you've drafted them and they're in the system?
Yeah, it's kind of evolved a little with my role. I definitely have the relationship the area scout has kind of with the players we have in our system, just because they're able to get to know their players easily. I'm kind of coming in, maybe I get to say hi here and there, talk to their parents at a game, but as far as building something deeply, I don't get that opportunity.
So, Eric, we have a little bit of time left, and I'd like to just ask a couple questions that we got on social media. I posted, I didn't post I was recording with you today, but I posted that I was going to record with someone who's pretty high up in the scouting side of things with a major league organization, and just got a couple questions that I'd like to throw out there and just kind of see what you think about them. The first one, and this is something I thought about earlier but just didn't quite get to it, I guess. I had a question: is velocity the number one thing that scouts look for in pitchers? And I might tweak that a little bit to say, is velocity an absolute necessity for you as the scouting supervisor?
No, I mean you got to compare high school kids, college kids. So yeah, I mean, you're not going to draft a high school kid that's throwing 80 to 83 miles an hour. Maybe if you're taking him in the 20th round, but at that point he's probably going to go to school and try to just develop and get stronger. But no, velocity is just only one component of what any teams are looking for. I mean, when you're looking at a pitcher, it's the way their arm works, their delivery, their balance, their athleticism. Can they spin a breaking ball? Their mound presence. Just the way their body's built, their ceiling, future growth. There's so many things that are coming into play. So definitely, if you throw 95 miles an hour and it's all effort and it's bad arm action, you don't have a breaking ball. I mean, it's really not going to pull the needle one way better for you.
As a college recruiting coordinator, it was a conversation a lot with us about how much we would allow ourselves to project a kid, right? You see a kid what he is now and you think what he can look like. As a college coach, you're seeing guys at 16 and you're projecting what they're going to look like at 20, 21, 22. And I thought it was a little bit, for me as a recruiting coordinator and just, recruiting coordinator in college, I mean, what that essentially means is that you were, I saw more guys than the other coaches did, and I was involved in a lot of the decisions that we made, and not all of them, but a lot of them. And we had a lot of conversations, and I had a lot of thoughts and just a lot of input on guys, and I think it was we talked a lot about projection and how much we would allow ourselves to project a kid, right? When you're offering a scholarship, and also just based on the ages that kids were, whether you're recruiting a junior college player or a high school player. Eric, how much will you allow yourself to use projection when you're drafting guys, meaning that this is what he is today, but we're going to draft him based on what we think he's going to be, 4 years from now. So we're going to try to get this guy in the 11th round out of high school instead of let him go to college where he might be a first rounder and we might not have a shot to get him.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it could just depend on just their frame, their ability to spin a breaking ball. How far away the velocity is, but definitely all teams love those types of players, and you're gonna take them higher in the draft, you can take them later in the draft. So, there's a lot of variables that come into play with those guys again. So it's the way their arm works, how far away the velocity is, can they spin a breaking ball, their balance and their delivery, their coordination, their confidence when you talk to them, what they want to do, their passion. So all those type of things that come into play. But yeah, I mean, you're not like triple projecting at the top of the draft just because there's so many good players now that they can grab that already have big tools or big stuff, and then you can even project even a little bit more on them, and they have a lot of performance history, and so you're definitely gonna go that direction. But I mean, I think you see it now, with these kids. I mean, what's amazing to me, especially at the amateur level, is the commitments these kids are making to college at such a young age, and it's insane. I mean, to think I go back with someone like myself when I was in 8th or ninth grade and thinking about and I was a great player, to think about making a college commitment. I'm like, there's no way I would have been ready to do that, to know where I'm going to be going in 4 years. And I get social media has connected these kids to more schools, and they're being able to get on campuses earlier, but just the way their brains are and just their experiences general to commit, and then to think that they're going to know how the schools are going to, they're just banking on that. Okay, wow, this kid's insane. He's great now playing against the other kids, so we know he's good. So let's just commit him. And then all of a sudden, by the time he's a senior, he really hasn't grown that much, and he's kind of just been stagnant. And then they were great 4 years ago, and now they get to campus, and before you know it, they're transferred off campus in a year. So I think that echoes probably a lot of colleges. They probably wish they could slow the commitment machine down, but until the NCAA does something about it, I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, there's nothing you could do about it. You have to do it.
Yeah, and it is a mess, and I don't know. I've asked that to a lot of people that I've had on the podcast, and every single one of them, and maybe it's just lip service on the podcast, or just even if it's off the podcast. But I've never talked to a coach who thinks that. A college coach who thinks that committing kids as 8th graders is a good idea.
They almost just have to, because they know another school will.
Well, that's what it is, and as a,
I feel for them. I mean, it is. I wish there was something they could do about it.
Yeah, I mean, and just to give people the reality of this situation and why schools end up having to do it more or less. So I got hired at Morehead State, a very, very mid-major Division I program, and I'm going out to see my first summer there. Like we were still trying to get guys in that senior class, like see if there's anybody left, because we kind of need to bring players in right when you get a job, and the next year you're moving on and seeing juniors in high school. But I can't tell you how many times I'm like seeing teams of juniors, travel teams, or even high schools where guys are committed, and it's like, somehow these Power 5 schools, or even the I don't know what you'd call them, but between a Power 5 and a mid-major, but they are, by the time I'm seeing this guy for the first time, he's committed. Like, if I'm going to start to get that level of talent, I'm going to have to see them earlier and earlier, and that's what ends up happening, and that's why you end up having 8th and 9th graders that are committing, because if you wait to commit guys until sophomore, junior, senior year, they're not there anymore. That level of talent is gone.
Yep, exactly.
A couple other questions for you, Eric, that we got on social media today. I had a question about lower level college players, Division III players, even maybe Division II, maybe junior college fits in this. I don't know, NAIA guys, but guys that are really good players at that level. I had a question, just basically how that guy can get seen, I guess, in the best atmosphere possible. Is it essential that type of player goes to play in really good summer leagues? What can a guy that plays at that level do to catch the eye of scouts? Because even a Division III player that has unreal success, he's not. You might go to see a hitter and he's facing a right-hander who's 83 to 85, and like it's really hard to project that hitter for the draft when he's seeing that type of pitching. And probably the same thing for pitchers. What do you think as the scouting supervisor for the Marlins? What does a guy that goes to a lower level college have to do to you to prove that he's ready to play pro ball?
Yeah, so a lot of times those are area scout type players, but on the back end, all the teams have the analytics, and if you're at a Division II, Division III, junior college, to get an opportunity, you should be dominating the competition and kind of being head and shoulders above everything, kind of anybody on your team, I would think. So, but those guys are getting scouted and they're getting seen. We have analytics on the back end that have identifiers of what all these players are doing in different conferences, and area scouts of all teams are going to see these guys, and if it matches up or they like what they see or they see something, players are going to get an opportunity. It happens every year. You see it all the time. And then after that, once they get the opportunity, it's up to them to go perform in the minor leagues just like anybody else.
I think it was the 2020 draft, the short draft, where the Pirates, who people know that I'm very interested in what the Pirates are doing, but I think they drafted a guy in the 5-round draft that year that was a Division III pitcher. There was a really interesting story. So it definitely can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Another question was about independent ball and how relevant independent ball could be. And I think it's a good question because now with only 20 rounds of the draft instead of 40, you have a lot fewer guys that are getting opportunities. And now with the draft, as you know as well as anybody, the draft is it's very there are a lot more players in the pool because of the short draft of 2020.
Yeah.
There were only 5 rounds, so guys that would have been drafted in round 6 through 20 came back the following year, and that made I'm sure the 2021 draft there were just so many more players than usual, and I'm sure that's going to kind of play out in the next couple of drafts. How much is independent ball? Is it looked at differently now? And especially that like minor league teams have been cut. Like is independent ball a little bit more of an avenue now than it used to be, Eric? And I know that you're probably not going to scout those guys, but is independent ball more of an avenue now than maybe it used to be for guys getting a chance to play pro ball?
It's always been a good avenue for guys. Whether they were injured, maybe they had an injury history or a little bit older and they couldn't get a job with an organization, so they go to independent ball and prove it all over again. But yeah, I would think I haven't been to any of those independent league games yet now, but especially with all the with minor league baseball losing, everyone losing some players under their umbrella, it's good that they're going to want to keep playing somewhere, and it's going to be independent ball. So yeah, you're going to probably keep seeing a rise of players signed at an independent ball, especially if you just want to keep playing and you put up numbers and a lot of these places now have all with the analytics and the TrackMan, and teams get the data and they're always going to be on the lookout for talent and for sure definitely be able to get back into affiliated baseball.
Just to wrap it up here, I've just got a couple other questions I'd like to ask if you have a few more minutes. I'm just to just kind of make it a little more personal and talk a little bit more about just you in general. With you right now as in such a high position within the Marlins organization, I'm sure that there's a lot of pressure in your job, but I'm assuming that there are a lot of really, really enjoyable things for you. What are some of the most enjoyable things about your job? What gives you the most joy with being a scouting supervisor?
Yeah, I think with anybody that enjoys their job, any industry, I think it's just the relationships with people. Pat Gillick used to say it best. It's a people business, so it's just kind of just being able to, especially here once we start in February, just the daily talkings I have with our regional supervisors or going to the scouts, our area scouts area and seeing players. It's just kind of, and then just being at games with the camaraderie of scouts that from other teams and the relationships that you've built. So I think it ends just kind of just with the people you work with and the culture, just trying to ultimately win championships at the major league level and just to do your part, whatever you're supposed to, whatever your job description is to do it and do it the best of your ability.
What about some of the more difficult or least enjoyable things about your job? Because just like every demanding job, I'm sure there are things that aren't so fun for you, and that might be time away from family, or it just might be some of the difficult decisions you have to make, or whatever it may be. But what are some of the least enjoyable things about your job that you wish that you weren't a part of it? Maybe.
The hardest thing, number one, and really only thing, is just like you said, it's just being away from my family. Being gone 10, 12 days at a time, home for 2 days, gone again for 12 days. So it's just the time away and the stress, that puts on your spouse or whoever, and just knowing that you're missing a lot. And it's also when you look at the kind of the scouting cycle, it gets to a point where you get into the summer months, the fall, the winter, where you have a lot of flexibility in your schedule, where you can make up for some lost time that you lose out in the springtime. So it's just kind of those different extended periods of time when the kids are small that you're missing. And technology's definitely helped with the FaceTime and video and all that. So that makes it easier, but it's still not the same as being home.
What does off season look like for you?
A lot of times, like, we're still working through into the fall a little bit, October, and then once you get into November, December, it's kind of really just kind of taking a step back. Maybe you're just reading some reports here and there as schedules start to come in for the next year, framework and some things, or just being that's the time where you can really just take a breath and relax and just get settled in the home and enjoy that time of the year.
Yeah, that's how I know it looks on the college side of things as well. As like November and December are about your only months to really breathe on the college side, and just from talking with guys that are on the pro side of things, I know that's one of the similarities. At least you get a little bit of time there to sort of decompress, and around the holidays, just to be home with your family. Eric, the last question I'd like to ask is to wrap this up. Just when you are finished on the baseball side of things, when your career's over, what do you hope that people look back at you and they talk about you? What do you want people to say about you? Like, who is Eric Valent, and who do you hope people see when they get to know you and through all your years of baseball? What do you want people to say about you when you wrap it up?
Yeah, I would just say had a passion for his job, always had a smile on his face, enjoyed being at the ballpark, and was conscientious, and you knew what you're going to get. You asked him to do something, he was going to do it, and he was always looking out what's best for the organization. He's kind of building relationships and trying to make everyone around him better.
That's a great answer, and I think what most people should be hopefully striving to do with their jobs, no matter what it is, whether it's with a baseball organization or elsewhere. This is Eric Valent, everyone. Has been joining us on the podcast today. Again, he is the National Scouting Supervisor for the Miami Marlins. Today's podcast was brought to you by Diamond Kinetics. Eric, I can't thank you enough for your time. Spending your morning with me today and just talking baseball here is very, very enjoyable. So I just want to personally thank you very much for your time and for joining us on the Figured Out Baseball podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I enjoyed it.